Hey, what's up everybody? So today we're going to be talking about this guy, and this is the TBS TANGO remote control. Now in my opinion, this is probably one of the best, if not the best, cinematic FPV remote on the market right now, and especially for beginners. And I don't mean the best for drone racing or the best for freestyle, I'm only talking about it being the best for cinematic FPV. Alright, so let's get into it, and the number one reason why this is such a great radio for beginners is because it has this built-in screen that transmits directly to your drone. And the reason that is so good is it means you don't have to immediately buy a pair of goggles. And I know when most people think of FPV, they think of the goggles. They think of first-person view, seeing from pretty much inside the drone itself, and controlling it like that. In my opinion, I think it can be really difficult to fly without a nice pair of goggles. But the problem is nice pairs of goggles tend to be really expensive. Even some of the goggles that I've used in the past, which are not great, cost around $120. So instead of buying a really nice pair of goggles or even wasting $120 or however much on a not so great pair of goggles, I suggest you just buy the Tango remote and your drone, and that way you can learn to fly just on your screen. And the video quality on the Tango is actually really good, so it's really easy to fly with it, and I would argue it's easier to fly with this screen than some of those crappy goggles. So again, I think it just makes way more sense to kind of slowly get into it without spending a whole bunch of money, just because FPV is really tedious and it takes a long time to actually start to get good at it. So in the beginning, you may not be sure if you want to stick with it. So instead of going all into it and dropping a bunch of money on gear for a hobby that you may not even like, I would just opt for getting a nice controller and getting a nice drone. And if you end up really enjoying it, you can get a nice pair of goggles later on. Now there are a couple other controllers that have screens like the TBS Tango, but in terms of setup and actually binding it to your drone, the Tango is probably the easiest. Okay, so I only have two bad things to say about this controller, and in the grand scheme of things, they're not even that bad. But I feel like you guys should be aware of them if you are planning on purchasing this. And the first thing is the size. Just because it has this screen in the middle makes it really wide, and it can be kind of awkward when you're first controlling it just because your hands are so far apart. But that's something you just get used to, and after a while you don't even really think about it. And then the second thing is this right stick. So for most FPV controllers, the right stick is a little bit more free-flowing, and for some reason with this, it's just got a lot of tension on it, and it almost feels like you have to try harder to kind of move it a little bit. But again, that's just one of those things that you get used to after a while. And again, other than those two things, I think the TBS Tango is one of the best controllers out there. So I left a link below if you want to go check it out. And I also made another video where I go a lot more in depth on my FPV gear. So if you want, you can check that video out right here. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Later.